I wanted to hurry and make my video before I end up going to another birth tonight because it looks like there's a good chance I might. So that has been the problem with my video getting up Monday for the last 2 Mondays, so I'm going to attempt to get it up barring any YouTube difficulties, so let's hope that it goes up fine. So today I'm going to talk about the thin ideal and why it is not evolutionarily sound, okay? And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to read from a section of this book that I'm going to show you, and I'm going to commentary on what I'm reading on the way, and kind of have a little discussion between my book and myself to talk about the thin ideal. So this book, this is called Survival of the Prettiest, The Science of Beauty, written by an author named Nancy Etcoff, and it's a great look on anthropological data, looking at different cultures, and she actually breaks down every part of the body, both male and female, including, commonly, evolutionarily, what is preferred among different species of animals and humans, in looking at face size, muscle mass, waist to hip ratio, all kinds of things. It's quite an interesting read, but what I'm going to talk to you about is a size, and in her chapter called Size Matters, which is starting on this book on page 195, critical mass. So in the United States and in much of the Western world, to be beautiful means to be lean and lithe and scythe-like as a ballerina and self-denying. In the midst of food abundance and culinary temptations, our highest paid fashion models are 5 feet 9 inch tall women, and actually I believe that figure is now higher. I believe it's closer to 5'11", who weigh 110 pounds, which I believe is also lower. So 104 pounds I believe is the average weight of a model, and the average height 5'11". So the disparity of height and weight is getting bigger, and that is in anorexic body type. Okay, so peering at them enviously is an average 5'4" 142-pound woman, and that figure is actually closer to 160 pounds, 155 to 160 pounds. Now, okay, weight is often calculated as body mass index, which is weight in kilograms, which is pounds multiplied by 0.45, and divided by height in meters or inches multiplied by 0.254. So the United States government recommends that people maintain a BMI of under 25. Now the problem with BMI is that it doesn't take into account body composition. So if there was actually a list of actors that I saw one time, actually from a dietitian, we're looking at actors like Tom Cruise, for example, when he was in his prime fit. I don't remember which movie he was filming, but his lean body mass was high and his fat ratio was actually very low. But his BMI was actually a 28 or 29, which would be considered obese, and he was not unhealthy. Okay, I know that later this week we'll be having some sections on obesity and the definition of obesity and why that doesn't necessarily correlate with bad health, although that is what is sold to us by the diet industry, by the health industry, is that obesity equals bad health, when this isn't necessarily true. Okay, it has more to do with fitness and dietary intake, what we're taking into our diets. And people who are of an anorexic body type can have a higher fat ratio than is recommended because their lean muscle mass is so low. So BMI is not a good measure of health, but that is what our government still promotes, and what is commonly used as comparisons among people with anorexia and bulimia and other eating disorders. Okay, so at 145 to 160 pounds, this woman may be healthy, but her body will be unfashionably large unless she whittles off another 30 pounds. Almost impossible if, for example, me, I'm about the average. I am an ultra marathon runner. I'm a boxer. I do a lot of weight bearing exercises. For me to lose 30 pounds would be put me at an unhealthy body weight for my frame, even though my BMI would still be normal. Okay, so BMI is a horrible measure. She would have a hard time doing this. And the average American keeps getting heavier despite collective pouring of $40 billion a year into weight loss centers, health clubs, diet meals, and low-calorie sodas, appetite suppressants, exercise equipment, and exercise videos. 1/3 of the population is obese, defined as 20% over the acceptable standards. That means 32 million women and 26 million men in the United States are obese. The figure jumped between 1980 to 1991, and it had held steady at 25% for 3 decades before that time. So weight woes are reported in Britain, where the proportion of obese adults has risen to 13% of men and 16% of women, double what it was 10 years ago, and in many other developed countries. If we are influenced by body images, as many social critics claim, one would think that most men and women would be lean, or at least getting leaner by now. The huge amount of money poured into the slimming industry suggests that we are trying, or are we? Fat consumption in the United States dropped only 2% in 1980, from 36% to 34% of the caloric intake. High-fat French fries, hamburgers, and chicken nuggets were 3 of the 5 fastest-growing restaurant foods. Portions have gotten so large that in restaurants that plates have gone from 10 inches to 11 or 12 to accommodate heaping portions. We aren't doing any better using those exercise videos or treadmills either. The average American spends only 16 minutes a day exercising. 24% of Americans are totally sedentary by couch potatoes and tomatoes. That was her words. A person who spent all day in bed would need between 14 to 1,600 calories to properly maintain the body and all its silent operations. Active people, she says, need no more than 2,000 calories. However, that can vary significantly, so I would disagree with that. Depending on your metabolism, that can vary significantly, and your activity level. So active, you define active, that's hard to define. So I would disagree with that and avoid going to calorie counting, but that is what Nancy Etcoff says. So, with so much food available and so little energy expended, it is no wonder why that our waistlines are expanding. We are not lazy or hypocritical, gluttonous or evil. We are humans. Now, this is important. We are up against millions of years of evolution that have selected for the ability to eat heartily, store fat, and take in as much fat, salt, and sugar as we can. We are adapted to a world of periodic famines caused by droughts, flood, earthquakes, and scarcity of plants or game. Even today, almost half of developing societies have food shortages at least once a year, and 1/3 of those have shortages that are severe. That the body has a propensity to store fat and to respond to food shortages by resetting the metabolism using food more efficiently is the bane of dieters, but highly adaptive. So that means when you are severely restricting, you're actually resetting your metabolism to use food more efficiently, and you're actually burning calories at a much lower rate, which is why some people cannot even get to an anorexic body type, because their metabolism will not let them. Their bodies are adapting to survival. At least it was adaptive for raised grain-fed animals in pen corrals that yielded prime sirloin with 30% fat or refined sugar to create eclairs and donuts. As with other pleasures, we tend to go for exaggeration, not subtlety. Every large supermarket and pharmacy has aisles devoted to candy bars, and every summer the barbecue fires up and the air smells of dripping fat. So we have this diet industry and then our actual food supply. Until recently, we could afford to eat what we wanted to because the food supply was limited in both quantity and variety, as anthropologist Napoleon Chiglin has said. Hearts of palm may be a delicacy in the United States, but when he lived in a tribal Yanomemem, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, Yanomemo, and had only hearts of palm to eat at times, they lost their appeal.